And after I had those lessons, it was almost like an overload. It's meant to be really natural. I was like, that doesn't feel natural. I love rules. And I like that about music too, that it has rules. There are things that have to happen, but I also like being able to be free. And I don't know, that kind of threw me.
This is Callum Moncrieff. Thanks for joining me for these three questions. Callum's a great percussionist. What else do you do? You're in the Air Force. Air Force?
Yep.
Yeah, Air Force band. Yep. Father, tour manager, bus driver, all those things. So thanks for answering these three questions. The first question is, why do you have music in your life?
Well, it's a funny, these are broad questions, as you've said from the outset, and it's interesting because that kind of changes as you grow up. And I think right now, one of the reasons that I have music in my life is it's almost just as employment, which is kind of strange coming from an idealistic point of view 20 years ago of deciding that I wanted to study music after taking a year off my commerce degree, which was probably a good thing to do.
You're still on leave from that?
Yeah, Flinders Uni will have me back, I'm sure. Callum who? Anyway, so I decided, to pursue music, and that's when I went into university. And it's kind of it's changed so much because, as you know, and as you sort of mentioned there, tour manager, like I got really deep into arts administration, arts management, and we worked at Wajo together for a period of years. Mm-hmm. And so that journey for me was so important, and music had a kind of a different way of being in my life, because it's so much more of a business in that sense. Which it is. I mean, the music business is the music business. Like we're all, I was listening to an interview today, we're all entrepreneurs. When you put your ideas out there, you're selling yourself, you're doing all that kind of stuff, you're putting the money into what you do. And so that kind of thing. But I think for me, that was always great because I loved working. I worked at the youth orchestra as well, and I've worked with the Melbourne Youth Orchestra a bit here. But setting up a stage for an orchestra or for a big band, or going to a venue and having kids who are in their 20s or at uni or younger, going in there and them looking around and being on the State Theatre stage in Perth. We did some amazing, that recording that we did there with Jim McNeely. Phenomenal, and things at the Perth Concert Hall, and that's the kind of thing that I love, going in and setting up music for people too. And now it's quite strange because I've sort of gone in this loop, and now I'm back playing music all the time, but it's still it's heavily administrative in the RAF band, just because I'm also a member of the Defence Force, and so we do all of our own logistics. So I've continued driving trucks, and got a medium rigid license, so now I can drive a bigger truck, and it's. So it's still logistics, but it's also still about just playing music. And they sort of say, we have to maintain our ability and our skills and our chops, as it were. So it's kind of a strange middle ground, because I'm also now playing a lot of like military marching band music, a lot of snare drum, which I've always enjoyed. I always had the snare drum in my life, but now it's kind of, for a lot of the time, it is my life.
Right.
And it's been great to work on my chops, but it's been a challenge for that sometimes to be the only musical outlet, and then to pull myself away and go and just play the vibraphone for a few hours to like really kind of reconnect to different tones, not just tap tap tap. But the thing about military music that's so interesting as well is that there's so much of a history there, and there's some guys at my work who have been there for a long time, and they've studied the history of military band music, and there's all these groups in America that are just phenomenal, in Europe that are just, you can see where so much music came from, and the technique. I mean, all the rudimental snare drum playing that like jazz drummers basically incorporated into their playing from the 30s and the 20s. And I think was it Gene Krupa was a military musician. No, what's his name? The guy that used Glenn Miller. Glenn Miller was like a trumpeter in a military band, I think. Anyway, so there was so much history there which I didn't really know anything about, and you know, now I'm playing these great marches, and there's something really cool about a marching band playing these old tunes that everyone in the band, like a lot of people really know them, and now there's this shift. There's a lot more younger people coming through, and we're still learning about this history. But they're great, you know, they're great arrangements. The parts are great. It's a challenge. You've got to stay in step. You know, you've got to, there's someone put this meme up about what's happening in the coronavirus at the moment, saying that if marching band directors were in charge of looking after the coronavirus, everyone would be standing an even amount of space away from each other and would not be allowed to touch their face whilst at attention.
There we go.
And so it would not have spread, you know. But so it's and it's really fun. And the thing about music that I love the most, and I think why I do music, is because of the people that you meet and the relationships that you forge. And you know, I'd always talk about how you and I first met in the boardroom at Whopper when they sort of yanked us out to talk about how music was going at Whopper. I think there was a bit of a period of change there, and so that was like 2004 or 2005. And, you know, like our paths have crossed different times, and I think it's been amazing. And, you know, we were talking about someone like Johannes Lubers as well, and people who you know, we met a long time ago, and now I'm meeting people from the Air Force Band who are just absolute legends, like musical gods, guys who are just so talented, but also just good people. And, you know, I was practicing for this flute and percussion duet yesterday, and I had a moment of real like musical connection with this flute player, Layla Engel, where you feel the rhythm and you feel the time the same way. And it's not something that happens all the time. Sometimes it's more difficult with people to have that real breathe in and breathe out, and it happens. And I think I love that. Like, it's so, for me, it's kind of, I guess it still comes back to that connection and that playing with other people and you know, but also supporting other people's careers, playing other people's music. You know, it's such a broad thing, and I think, you know, anyone's journey in music is going to be different and undulating, and there's ups and downs, and it's a really strange time, you know, because we've got all this time to be trapped in front of the instrument, and all you want to do is get out, you know. Like, I remember saying that in the period of time where I was really busy working, you know, in an orchestra or something, and just thinking, man, I'd just love to be able to spend 5 hours in front of the vibes, you know.
Yeah, I wish I could just be at home, you know, no distractions for a month. I was like, well, that's happened now.
And what I love is some people are really embracing it. You know, there's a guy, I think he lives in Perth again now, called Paul DeSink. I don't know if you know him. No. He's a brass player. He went through UWA about the same time as me, and he's been doing heaps of these multi-screen, different part sort of performances online. And I've been loving it. And then I saw a post by a couple of people, like Katie Noonan was quite vocal about this, saying, stop sharing your music online for free, because it's completely diminishing the fact that all these artists aren't being supported by what's happening. So it's a real it's quite a divisive. There's I think everyone's sort of asking a lot of questions of like what do we do and how do we do it now, because everything's changed so quickly, and there are. Yeah, and it's really good, you know, like Adam Page doing his solo shows on that, on that pay sort of platform, you know, that's right.
You know, you buy a ticket and then you can watch. I mean, I think things like that will start to pop up, you know, different creative ways of being able to present your music, you know, not necessarily just in the club.
Yeah, and there is that idea of doing something for free, diminishing its worth, but then there's also that idea of you wanting to share what you do, and it always starts if you look at anyone who's been a musician, who's been in a band, and you've had to go out and do gigs, you know, you start doing them for $20 and
then you end up doing them for $20.
Well, I was going to say, you end up in the Village Vanguard Orchestra and you're still doing, you know, 3 shows a night or whatever. Here's your $20 on a meal.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to start somewhere. And I think, so it's a total, clash of ideas at the moment. But it's always been that way, hasn't it? Like, you've had someone like Bach writing for the church, then you've got like Haydn, who's being paid by a family of essentially philanthropists to write music. But you've also got the troubadours who are wandering around Europe just playing music for free and starting out that sort of genre of music. So there's always been both, I guess. There's people who are happy to just play out on the street because they want to play music and they don't care about anything else. And then there's someone else who wants to do it to feed their family and pay their mortgage. You know, you can have both, but you just have to prioritize and think about whether you can keep giving back from a free point of view whilst also maintaining your own life. And I don't know.
Well, and I think that's a difference too, where, you know, people that, you know, maybe have other income, you know, teaching or another job, or, you know, who, you know, they are professional musicians, but it's not their main source of income, versus people, you know, because I know Katie, you know, she performs. That's what she does, and that's her main source of income. And as she said, she's the kind of the breadwinner for the family of 3 kids. So you do see the very different sides of the story, and it's everyone's different, and everyone has, you know, everyone still wants to contribute music. It's a tough.
That's the sad thing now at the moment with orchestras standing down players and
so MSO,
so even professional musicians, professional, but, you know, people who have done that their whole life as their job in an orchestra. I think it's going to raise. Well, I hope it doesn't raise questions about the value of music in a negative way, because I think it should raise questions of the value of music of being so important to people's lives. Like, what have we missed out on? I mean, just going down to the pub and having a beer and just watching someone play a solo guitar for a set and sing, you know, we can't even do that right now. Or going to a concert hall. I mean, imagine the idea of going and sitting in at the State Theatre here, sitting and watching a ballet show. You look down into the pit and there's, you know, 60 musicians crammed in close to each other. You know, the social distancing thing, your mind would explode.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, even when I see like video of performances in the past, and you're like, everyone's so close together. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's totally changed that mindset. But I think at the end of the day, like, people need music and people need to keep writing. And I guess there's going to be a creative outpouring after this, because people, you know, you use downtimes to inspire art, and hopefully people will, you know, there'll just be heaps of songs with the word coronavirus in it. Or there's my favorite one is COVID-19 well, that's a good one, but I like COVID-19 do. I can never, once I start singing that, it's stuck in my head.
That's going to be stuck. Okay, well, the second question. Let's bring us to the second question, which is, how do you make music?
Yeah, well, I guess I sort of touched on it before. It's you know, I make music at the moment with the Defence Force, and so it's very much about going out on parade and playing for graduation ceremonies, and practicing. I mean, one of the things that I've been doing, aside from playing in a concert band or a parade band, is just practicing a lot of solo stuff lately, which has been great. So just really trying to shed on the vibes, because it's a beast, the vibraphone, and it's got so many different ways of being. If I look on, so there's a great musician called Nick Mancini, who lives in LA, and he's been doing all these live concerts, and I watch him. He's a jazz machine, you know, and I had some lessons with him, and he's all about the structure of music, and learning about harmony and practicing things on the vibes that are all about chords, and really getting inside the language of jazz. And after I had those lessons, it was almost like an overload, and I thought, I don't think I can ever learn all of this.
Yeah.
Like, where do you start? But then it's meant to be really natural. So I was like, for me, I was like, that doesn't feel natural. I love rules. And I like that about music too, that it has rules, that there are things that have to happen. But I also like being able to be free. And I don't know, that kind of threw me. And then there's this idea of more avant-garde vibraphone playing. And, I listened to pieces there's a famous piece called Omar that was written, I think in the 70s. And it's just, it's a mess of notes on the page. Sonically, it's one of those pieces where, and all the percussionists out there will not be happy if I said this, but where it's one of those things where you could just pretend that you're playing the piece, and unless someone knew it quite well, they go, "Oh, I think you hit the wrong note there." Like, did I? And it was one of those things too. Looking at this piece, I actually tried to learn it at uni, and I looked at the first page of it, and it's A3 landscape, handwritten, and we were talking about the range of the vibes. So you're going to go 3 ledger lines below in treble clef, and then however many above. But then when the score is like the staves are written out so close, and he's writing all over the range, and so there's notes everywhere. I don't know.
I can feel you getting anxious now.
I know. I just thought, I can't play this. Like, it's driving me insane, because every single chord, you would have to stop, and I'm like, okay, it's those 4 notes. And, these are like, it's moving in quavers across the bar. And I remember I had a lesson with Paul Tanner. He was I had a few lessons with him in my honours year, and he was saying, try and bounce between the chords, so that you, instead of going bing, looking bing, like he's like, try and bounce around, make them sort of flow. And I'm thinking, how I need to know. I mean, it's the kind of thing with the vibes, you need to memorize everything anyway. Because you struggle to look at the notes and the music and say the conductor at the same time. It's a real challenge. But this is one of those pieces where you just have to memorize it, or it just doesn't work. But anyway, so that's kind of, at the moment, that's how I do music, is really like a lot of solo vibes, and I'm hoping to do some recordings as part of work. There's a composer called Amanda Cole who's got a piece called Vibraphone Theories, which is about the sine tones and the different. It matches the vibrations of these notes. It's a playback CD, so you play along to the sounds that she's created as well. So that's kind of cool. Like, yeah, I've always been into that side of music, as well as playing with people like yourself, and really having a groove. One thing that Anna, my wife, just loves, like Motown music. And I always think, I think back to some of the gigs at the Quarry. Some of the best gigs I've ever done, like just the vibe.
Actually, I've got video of that. I've got video of the whole concert, so I'll get it to you somehow.
Yeah. Just pop over, bring it.
Okay, yeah.
You can fly here, can't you? Can you fly? Oh no. Oh right, no, COVID.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, it might. Third question. What excites you musically right now?
I've been listening to a lot of music as opposed to playing as much music, because I haven't been able to play in ensembles as much in the last month or so. And I mean, yeah, Motown stuff's cool for the groove, and the kids have just thankfully discovered like the top 50 best play school songs.
Oh, right.
So I'm really digging Bar Bar Black Sheep, and there's heaps of trombone on this album too, which you would appreciate. It sounds like an elephant. It's always an elephant noise there.
Well, of course.
But between that, I just recently, one of my favourite bands is like an indie band from Britain called Elbow, and they just released an acoustic album, and the thing that I love about it is the lyrics, because it's one thing that, you know, in the genres that you and I sort of practice, sometimes lyrics are not included, you know, like, and so to really listen to what someone's saying, and it always used to surprise me talking to friends who were instrumentalists first, and I find it to be saxophone players more often than not, who just don't listen to the lyrics of a song. So, you know, musicians were always sort of analysing the rhythm or the harmony or whatever, you know, there's a thing in there that you can't sort of turn off. And I guess for saxophone players, they never get to the point of listening to the lyrics.
Controversial.
And it's, yeah, well, bring it on. I'll start naming names in a minute. It's, there's things like, you know, the man you were will know the man you are will know the boy you were. And, just things like this guy, his name is Guy Garvey, the singer. It's just poetic, and you can walk around and you know, it's great music for reflecting, because it's musically it's fantastic. And they did an album with the BBC Symphony Orchestra back in 2009 or something. And so the music, it just fits orchestral. It's lush. It's like it's just beautiful music. And then you put these lyrics on top, and not only just the lyrics, but his voice is phenomenal too. He's got this gravelly, like Manchester accent, you know, so it's always about love, all right, love, you know, like very much like that. And yeah, I'm also just inspired. Before we spoke, I was just listening to an interview with them, with this guy, Zane Lowe. I don't know if you've heard much of him.
No.
He's a New Zealand DJ who moved to the UK back in 1997, and he did heaps of like amazing DJ work, but also he had a show on BBC One for sort of 12 years, and I've seen his name pop up. He left in 2015 to start Beats One, which is like an Apple-run international radio show.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd seen his name all the time on all this stuff on Apple Music, and I hadn't really listened to him very much, but he's a really great interviewer. And talking to the guys from Elbow, it was just, you know, you could really kind of get more into the music. And it's one of those things, it's like podcasts, you know, I go through a phase of really getting into podcasts. Things like Malcolm Gladwell has this podcast called Broken Record, where he talks to Rick Rubin, who is like, the producer of the Beastie Boys,
everyone,
amongst other things. Yeah, like that's where he started, you know. And so they're fantastic. So I go between listening to people talking about music to then, you know, just really like getting into just listening to a certain. I mean, I went and saw Tool here in Melbourne at the end of February. Luckily, that wasn't cancelled.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I was listening to some amazing heavy metal for a while there in the lead up to it, and then the post-concert excitement. And that's just a whole different vibe too, because that's like these guys were like metal math masters, you know, where they're doing, the drummer Danny Carey's doing so much with time signatures, and you know, that stuff blows my mind. And I remember actually I was thinking about you yesterday, because you said to me once when I was talking about writing this piece with heaps of cross rhythms and stuff, and he's like, you said to me, like, oh, just write the damn rhythm, you know, like just write something down, you know, don't all this cross rhythm stuff, just make it groove, you know. And this would have been back in like 2010 or something.
I still stand by that.
Stuck with me. Yeah, well, and that's the thing, like, so yeah, definitely 4 on the floor. If you, as a drummer, if you can't play 4 on the floor, you got nothing. But then if you can play these 9/8 grooves where you can't even pick the one, but then all of a sudden it just comes in like bam, and you just, you know, there's something about that
because it's still grooves when they're doing that.
Yeah,
they can make it sound effortless. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so. You know, coming back to your question, what excites me about music, I love that. I like groove. Like something has to groove, and there's no point. And you know, again, controversial. That piece Omar for me on vibraphone never had a groove to it. It didn't work for me. It didn't fit my groove. I've heard people play it, and it sounds great from when they play it, but for me, it just didn't work. And I think, you know, like with all this music game, with all this business, this talk that we're doing now, like it has to be something that you like connect with, that you feel, because otherwise you can go out there and, you know, you can be unhappy. You can be playing music 5 nights a week, but if you're not digging it, it does become like work. So, like there's, and that's what you don't want. You want music, even though it is an income, it's your job, it's keeps you going every day. You got to get up and shave and do what you have to do for it. But you've got to love it too.
Yeah.
And that's,
totally.
I think you've got to be able to find that passion. And I think what, strangely enough, when I spoke to you about doing this talk to you, I was feeling pretty low about music at the time. And I was just thinking, what am I going to say? What if I'm all doom and gloom and, what excites me about music? Well, nothing, like the end of a piece. Yeah. But then I listened to a bit of Elbow actually, and that kind of revitalized my love in just over the last few days. So it's a constant battle. She's a devil of a mistress, or a master, like,
Awesome.
Anyway,
I reckon
I'm gonna pull out a few more cliches.
Yeah. that was awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for giving up your time. I mean, the good thing about this is that I know that everyone's home, so no one can say no.
Yes. No, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and I think it's a really great idea what you've done, and the broad questions really. It's like Andrew Denton's show Enough Rope. Like it just, you get someone starting and then they dig their own hole.
Yeah, that's exactly. But it's been really good to hear how everyone has a different perspective on all the questions and answer them differently. Yeah. So thank you for your time, and stay safe.
Pleasure.
And catch you soon.
Thanks, mate.